Hey, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is Harry from Hasper TV, and this is my second episode of Tottenham Therapy. So now that's what I'm calling my episodes now. And today we're talking about the North London derby. So it's not exactly like a small game. I take it on Sunday, Carl. So how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Yeah, like as you say, just a small little game against an insignificant team across the road, but looking
Yeah.
forward to it. Nervous as always. I don't think anyone goes into a North London derby feeling confident at all, even no matter what the form's like. So yeah, this should be a good one, shouldn't it?
I mean, I've only done I think one preview for North London derby, or maybe wait, is it three now? I think this is my third one I've done on my channel, and each one. I hate it the most because I know if we lose the game, my group chats will just go mental. it's, so, so as you know, in my area, it's pretty much just Spurs and Arsenal. So if we lose the game, my phone just goes mental. So do you have the same experience as me or as other people?
Yeah, no, definitely. We've got group chats with mates and work colleagues and everything like that. And obviously, it's the fixture that everyone looks forward to because, it's like one of them ones, if it goes your way, you can't wait to go into work the next day, can you? And if it doesn't go your way, it's like, do I phone in sick? Do I go and sit on a different floor for the day and just get my head down and not be noticed? But yeah, I mean, I've normally felt confident in the home fixture. I mean, you never feel
Yeah,
confident going to their place at all. You always feel like you're going to get a tonk in. But
yeah.
the home fixture, I normally always have felt confident with. But this season's slightly different with everything that's going on. But yeah, it's definitely one of them fixtures. I have started noticing over the years. I start getting more stick now off my Chelsea and West Ham mates. It's
Really?
become a little bit more venomous stick, should I say, with them than some actual Arsenal fans.
That's quite surprising because the reason I get most stick as well is because I work in near Islington, so it's kind of a given, really.
Oh, well, that's it. Yeah. Prime area, mate.
It's just like honestly, like I've even spoken to people that I might not go into work on Monday if we lose. If we lose badly, I might not even go to work.
I think I used to feel a lot like that in my younger
Yeah.
days, but do you know what? I kind of mellowed out a little bit as the years went on, and not being funny. I always say to people now, it's like, listen, I'm so used to being the butt of the joke when it comes to football with fans that even with West Ham fans, if we're playing West Ham and there's something seriously important on the game, there's a likelihood you're going to go into work and ending up being the butt of the joke for the day because we'll have bottled it or put our foot in it. So over the years, I've kind of just, you go in there, and if we've lost, it's a bit like, listen, there's nothing more you can say that I haven't heard 100 times before. So get it out of the way, bring it on, do your worst, because it's all just going to be water off a duck's back now, mate.
Because now mainly because I'm in a lot of WhatsApp chats, I'll just mute it for like the whole weekend. Like if well, the problem is because it's the last game of the weekend. I think it's kind of worse because on the Monday morning, I think you're more likely to get messages.
I think, yeah, this is one where this is the one game though where I do hear from a few people I've never heard of for months and months, and all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork and start going, "Oh, all right, so we played each other this weekend, did we?"
Because I want Tottenham Arsenal to put the league. All right, thank you.
I think we all want
Yeah,
that, don't we?
yeah. So, but going into the game, like our form seemed quite iffy. I think I know we've won back-to-back games. We won Palace away, which was kind of like a relief at the end of it. But we kind of scraped past Portsmouth, I felt. But are you going into this game thinking because our form's quite iffy, we could perform better, or because our form's so like overall been bad over the last 10 games, 12 games, is it worse because Arsenal have been so good this year?
I guess the only good thing that you can go into this game thinking is, can we play much worse than we have done over the last few
Mm.
weeks? And you kind of sit there and go, well, I don't think we can play much worse than we've seen, to be honest. Arsenal are flying. So, they are favourites going into this game. So all the pressure's on them. And also the pressure is on them because people are waiting for them to fall. And obviously, so far, they've avoided falling against
Mm.
anyone, but everyone's waiting for that first opportunity where they go, there it is. There's the cracks. This is going to be the start of the end for Arsenal. It's all downhill from here. So I think there's a lot of pressure on them. Obviously, the only thing that I fear about this weekend is the fact that they might want to come and get one over on us after last season and
Yeah,
the way things went
yeah,
last season. I'd say this is really weird because when it comes to North London derbies, I've had most of my Tottenham support in life being the underdogs in this fixture, going into it, going, well, yeah, we've never been running for titles, we've never been the better side out the two. So I've always gone in thinking, well, they're the favourites. We're not a great side, but we've seen over those years many a times where, especially at home, we've been able to give them a bloody nose, and manage to get a result. So I'm not confident, but then I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, they're going to come and easily brush us aside. I could still see us winning the game. A lot of it will depend on some of the players that are playing, of course.
So yeah, I will get into that later. But I kind of have a different view of that. So obviously, I grew up watching Arsenal destroy us in the 90s and the early 2000s, especially big up. But especially, obviously, I was there when they won the league at White Hart Lane, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
any Arsenal fans are watching this, you'll probably like to hear that. And I guess until Harry Redknapp, I felt like we didn't have anything on them in the home match. But once that Danny Rose goal went in, and I was one of the very few Spurs fans probably that night that thought we'd actually win the game because I had a lot of faith in the Redknapp side, a lot of faith in them, which is kind of why I have a big nostalgia for that era of Tottenham for Redknapp side because I love that team so much. Obviously, everyone has their sort of favorite teams,
yeah,
and a lot of people point to Pochettino, I guess, in recent years. But I was more a Redknapp fan.
yeah,
Um, I just love that era so much. But once we beat them that day and we broke that I can't remember how long it was since '99 I think till we beat them that day. It was like some crazy record. Was it like 20 years or something like that?
yeah. We've had these kind of nice records
I
against
can't remember
most
what it
big
was. It's
teams, haven't they? Yeah,
something
the
like
one
that.
against Chelsea as well for so long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I felt once that happened, I was going into every North London derby at home a lot more confident. Of course, we had that little spell with Sherwood and that 6 months where obviously we lost. I'm going to discount that because I'm talking about overall. But then we had Poch, and even during the Poch, obviously Poch's first season we beat them. But I always felt like even though the AVB we beat them, after the Redknapp thing, I felt that we were going to beat them.
yeah,
Now I'm going into this game after what's been going on because the club for me, and this is going back to leave you out, I guess. But since that Redknapp era, we haven't gone forward as a club. I don't think
yeah,
overall we
yeah,
haven't pushed on since top four. So counting double the fact that Conte's here and we're missing so many players going to this game, Arsenal. I hate to say this, I'm kind of like going to the game as if like I was watching a game in the 90s. That's how it feels like to me. Like I'm like begging we get a draw, like we scrape a draw. I'll take that right now
yeah.
because for me, this Arsenal side, when I watch them, it's almost like it's their best team since the Invincibles. That's just my opinion. You might disagree. And that's why going to the game because we're so bad right now. We have so much issues at the back, and we have one or two star players or whatever. It's like this. I feel like I'm just walking back into the 90s again, watching the game. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like to me. I know you disagree with me with that, but do you think that the momentum sort of changed though compared to last season? Because we finished fourth, and we thought we are going to push on from that. But I almost feel like, so excuse this pun, that them finishing behind us has spurred them on to be better this season.
Yeah, I think as you rightly said, when you consider last season, and I think when you look at that game at our ground last season, that was a kind of humiliation for Arsenal that night because you had the crowd, you had the game, and that they started quite well in that game last season for the first 10 minutes or so, but
Yeah,
then
they
as
did.
soon as,
They
as
did.
soon as we got that penalty and the red card, they just crumbled. And I think that was quite a humiliation because it looked like that was the beginning of the end for them. That they then crumbled in the next few games, and obviously we pipped them. So I do think there is that element of they've got a fire in their bellies where they want to come back now and prove a point. And they have been doing it all season so far. As much as we hate them, you have to give them credit for the performances they're putting in, because I've said this season reminds me of the Leicester season, because every week you start sitting there thinking this will be the week when Arsenal fall, this will be the game where it all starts turning round, and they go and get a result again and put a performance in where you think, like you started hoping they wouldn't go to Brighton and get anything. It's Brighton a decent side, and they go and brush them aside with ease, and you think, oh God, is this going to be the season where they actually can cling on and actually do what we hope they don't do? But I do think, I'll go into this game a lot less confident than I've gone into any other North London derby at home in, say, the last 10 years, maybe. Easily
that's
10
how I
years.
feel.
It's one of them games where you think, oh, yes, you hope form goes out the window, because if this game goes on form, then we're in big trouble. But there's still a part of me that thinks we can get a result here. If Son can show up, if Kane shows up like we know he does, if Kulu suddenly's playing, then I still feel we've got a chance at getting something out of that game. The biggest issue we know we've got is defensively. Just a case of, will they be able to put too much pressure on us at the back and cause us problems? But I still feel we could nick this, but I'm not confident at all.
Like you said, compared to previous years, last season I was a lot more confident because we had the momentum. I think after the West Ham game, I felt like it kind of swung, and then I felt we had to win that game to finish in the top four. Like there was no other option. So the club we had to win the game. In this one, because of also the timing where it is in the season, we're sort of like hitting midway. It kind of reminds of also games under Martin Jol, because for some reason we always used to play the home game like midway in the season. It wasn't always like at the end.
Yeah, normally used to be October, because it was always around my birthday, and it'd be like, what a great birthday this is going to be.
I'll tell you what happened on my birthday when we played Arsenal. So the League Cup semi-final on my 16th birthday, I actually remember this. I think it was my 16th or 15th, one of those years. You might remember the date, actually. So when we lost 3-1 in the second leg, and Mido got the header to get us extra time. That was on my birthday.
Oh no!
31st of January.
Horrible, mate. Horrible.
And I remember, I went home. I was like, please. All I asked for was that Tottenham get a result, please, on my birthday against Arsenal.
Yeah, not good. Not
and I
good.
I walked into school the next day. Everyone was like, yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah, horrible. That was. Going into school was worse than going into work, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just Justin. Hey, you're right, mate.
Hello, mate. Sorry about that. I had a bit of a mare, so tried to get on as quickly as I could. So.
Oh no, that's okay. How you doing, Justin?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. So, how are you feeling going to Sunday?
Oh, that's a toughie. I mean, it's quite interesting because I kind of feel similar to the last one. If you think when we went into the last one at home, not this season, but the last one when it was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last season, and it felt like it had the similar importance. We needed to get a result to be able to really sort of finish the season strong. And it almost feels like it's got that same sort of feeling around it, that I think for both teams, there's almost that feeling of can't lose, got to win it, because obviously for us, it could put us on a good run. For Arsenal, it could send them towards the title. So
You'll like this one, Justin.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I don't think it would take a rocket scientist to work that one out. I mean, the fact that it's so difficult with him, because you can tell he's trying, but it's just like watching it would be like me doing the Olympics. It would look horrific, but they'd be like, oh, well, at least he's trying. And that's kind of the similar with Emerson. You can see the determination, desperation, but he's not a right wing back. And I do kind of feel sorry for him, because he was brought in for Nuno. That's the clear part about it. It was nothing to do with Conte in the slightest. He was brought in for Nuno, to play away for Nuno. And the club have got no one to blame but themselves, because they brought somebody in and then sacked him within 5 minutes. Obviously, they had no choice because of how bad of an appointment it was. But you ultimately really have to think, why would you have spent the money you did for a manager that you weren't convinced of? That's kind of my uncertainty around it. It was almost like, if you weren't sure, don't spend any money, see what he can do with what we've got. And then if you don't trust him, you know, you then sort of think, right, well, let's get rid of him. Because you kind of think almost Chelsea are in a similar position with Potter. You know, they've now said they've got to back him because we've spent all that money for him. I mean, they did the same for Tuchel and then sacked him. So, you know, with Emerson, I do feel sorry. I think ultimately for his career, I don't see what benefit it has to him to want to stay at Tottenham, because he's being played out of position. You know, he's not being shown in a good light. I would have thought, a bit like Sergio Reguilon, get to Spain or get somewhere else, you know, get some good minutes under your belt, and perhaps get to a team where you're going to play in your favoured, you know, formation. So
that's interesting. We're back Potter. Okay.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's an interesting one, because with Potter, the thing you've got there is, you've got somebody. If it had been Abramovich, I think it'd have been game over by now. But you know, Todd Bowley and them, they are backing Potter, and you just have to feel that they have to accept when they hired him that will take time. You know, he was I remember when he first went into Brighton, because they're local to me down here, and the fans at Brighton absolutely, you know, they hated him. They hated him. They thought Chris Hughton was doing a better job. And then as it went on and it developed, he was then becoming the better manager. So that will be the thing. And obviously he is still working with a squad that wasn't his to start with. So, you know, and as we're seeing with Conte, he's working with a squad that's based of 3 previous managers. So, you know, it's one of those things that unless you give somebody time in the full backing, which I can imagine something we'll talk about, then they're a pointless signing.
I was just saying before you joined, Justin, that Carl had different opinions about this, but I feel like I'm going to the game on Sunday as if like we're playing Arsenal in the 90s, because I think the momentum changed that much in such a short space of time. As in, I'm that not confident, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I think the problem that they've got, that Tottenham have as a whole, is it ain't going to look good if you look at everything that's been going on, the rumblings, everything behind the scenes, the fans starting to show unrest, and then obviously what they came out with, you know, to the supporters trust, which I thought was, you know, is really playing with fire. You have to sit there and think that I can't see how they can't go out there and give it their all. There's part of me that feels, I feel it's got a draw written all over it, but you know, like a 2-2 or something like that. I think both teams will go for it, because I just don't see how anybody, because not being funny, if Tottenham get turned over really badly at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, it'll be nothing. You know, what happened at United,
very toxic.
What happened at the United game when we lost 3-0, I think will be nothing in comparison to what will happen at the North London derby. So, you know, the first goal will be crucial.
That's the bigger thing, isn't it? I think is that for us, the biggest thing that can happen is a heavy defeat sends that place, the toxicity that will come over that ground, especially knowing that you then got City the following week, who, let's face it, you could go there and get tonked as well. And before you know it, you've had 2 real heavy defeats. If those performances have been dire, like they have been lately, fans will start going mad, especially if there's no signings coming in.
Well,
and that will be when you'll see the Levy out and ENIC out stuff start.
Because they've started already. I mean, it was quite telling, you know, and I totally agree with what you're saying there, because it was telling how you could hear it at Selhurst Park. I didn't think we'd hear any of it at Selhurst Park, and you could hear it there. So I think that will, to me, if I was, you know, an Arsenal, if I was Arteta, I'd be like, get the first goal. Get that first goal. If we can get the first goal, we can dictate the game, because the fans will turn. It will become frosty. It'll become difficult for the home team, and we can then pick them off. And I think for Tottenham's purposes, you know, that's why I think more than anything, the first goal is absolutely crucial, because I think if it does go to Tottenham, you know, the mood change, it becomes, you know, quite sort of lively, and everyone is getting on the backs of the Arsenal players, and then it will be a case of, well, let's show your mettle. and see, can you,
Wait,
you know,
it's a nightmare. Remind me of that, mate. Yeah, sorry, it's about Willian in the chat. Sorry, going Chelsea. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, you can't blame why he did go to Chelsea.
Yeah,
because he won everything
I
under
just,
the
I just
sun.
want to say,
So...
Justin, I really like your T-shirt. It's actually really cool.
Oh, thank you.
I've got
Apologies as well.
so...
I'm kind of, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
you know, I remember that showing my age as well.
Yeah.
But apologies, I'm eating as well. So,
Oh no, that's okay. Don't worry.
but yeah, I mean, in terms of that, the game itself, the first goal is so crucial because it could turn it, you know, bouncy and lively and really get the fans on side. Or if Arsenal get it, it will become very toxic. It really will.
If
And
by
then
the 70th minute that game Arsenal are like 3-0 up, then I'd say now the last 20 minutes just become Levy may as well leave.
Yeah.
I don't. If I was him, I wouldn't hang around because
I wouldn't hang around. Yeah.
Well, I don't. He hasn't. I mean, I was listening to Alistair Gold when he was talking about what they came out with, what the supporters trust came out with in terms of the response back. And I just kept sitting there and thinking, you are really playing with fire here. Because as I said, if Tottenham are getting turned over by Arsenal, they're going to be like, you need to do massive in January. It doesn't matter what you think about the summer. Screw the summer. It needs to be now. And and when we look at what they did, and the thing is, they can't argue it because what they did last January worked. It absolutely worked. It was massive. Bentancur and Kulusevski. We saw the difference they made. So, to me, it, as I say, the game on Sunday is just. It'll be Levy's worst nightmare if Tottenham get turned over and get turned over badly, which is one of the worries I do have because, you look at how this team played against Danny Ings, Ollie Watkins, and Buendia, who wouldn't get into the Tottenham team.
I don't know about that.
Well, I tell you now, I wouldn't have had any of those. Especially against Kulusevski, maybe possibly Son, but Kane. But you're going up against Martinelli, Saka, and Nketiah, who's been seeming to do well in replacement of Jesus. So that is going to be a really tough test, particularly for that back line.
So Carl, I was going to segue into Nuno because I think this is quite comparable. Because I was talking about how negative I'm feeling going into the game. That's the same way I kind of felt going into the away game last season when we had Nuno. As in, I just feel like I've got no confidence going into it. Is there anything you can tell me that can make me feel better going into that match?
I think this thing you still have to feel confident about. And like I said earlier, if Kulusevski can suddenly make it and put in an appearance, I still think you have to feel confident that with Son, hopefully, if he can, this might be the sort of game that gets him firing. If Kane will do what Kane normally does, if you can get Kulusevski playing as well on the pitch, then you still got to feel confident that you've got an attack that can cause a team problems. And, at home, hopefully with the crowd going as well, I still think this isn't a game that I think we can go in ultimately saying, no, that's it. We don't have no chance whatsoever. We're beaten. There's still a chance that we can go in and get a performance. And we've still got to see how do Arsenal perform in a hostile environment under some pressure. They know that there's a lot on the line for them as well, because they know this is a real big test of their character. If they can't come through this, then the accusations start coming at, well, Arsenal are going to bottle this. They haven't got what it takes to get the title over the line. So there's pressure on them. They go in knowing they're favourites. There's pressure around whether they can handle the heat at the top. Can they get it over the line? And you're not coming up against, like, when we're saying we're playing bad, we're not Southampton or someone like that at the moment, bottom of the table, not haven't got great players. We've got some good players who on their day can put good performances in. We just need to hope that we have the right perfect storm for us, that we can go out. And as we said, if the crowd are up for it, which we know they will be, that might get the team going. We've got to come out much livelier than we have most weeks so far. We can't rely on coming out in the second half in this game. You've got to go out, get yourself ahead, get yourself in control of that game, and then see where it takes you. So I don't think although I'm not confident, I also still think we can get a result and we can turn it on if we need to. You know, we can still beat anybody on our day. We just got to hope that that day comes, and you know, maybe a bit of pressure does kick into the Arsenal side, and you know, they do find that environment and that pressure a little bit hard to deal with, and they don't play as well as they have done recently. I think it's going to be a good, you know, it's going to be a good game. If you're a neutral, brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Watching, you know, if you're a fan of either of the two sides,
Oh god.
you're sitting there. There'll be Arsenal fans right now, I'm telling you, that are going, I ain't looking forward to this game Sunday. I really ain't looking forward to it. You know, I'm not confident. So I think it just works both sides, you know.
If you go past a 2-0 down half time, TM no chance. He's right. You're right, Hashim.
Absolutely.
So going on to that, Justin, this is the phrase everyone seems to use in this game is form goes out the window. So do you think that form could go out the window? We can win the game.
Yeah, I actually do. You know, because you look at it, and there seems to be a pattern that has formed over the last probably 3, 4, 5 years, which is at the Emirates. You can forget about it. I think the last time we won was it that 3-2
Yeah.
come back with Redknapp in charge and the Kabul getting the winner. But then I think I read a stat that Arsenal haven't won at our ground for 2014. So you look at it and you're absolutely right. There is, you know, there is some real. I don't know why I kind of feel more optimistic about the Arsenal game than I do against, you know, the other games that we've come up against, purely because there's, in a strange way, there's more riding on it for Arsenal than there is for us. Okay, because if we remember back to when we played Chelsea, you know, at Stamford Bridge that time when Leicester won the title, you know, we'd never been in that position. Arteta had never been in the position he is now, where he's top of the table and, you know, pushing for the title, and he's got a juggernaut in City chasing him down. So there's going to be that sense of, and obviously Chelsea went into that game just thinking, as long as we screw Spurs over, we couldn't care less what happens. That was their mindset, as simple as that. So you kind of almost feel like going into this game that there's two purposes as to why Spurs will want to get something out of it. The first one is to stop Arsenal winning the title. The second one will be the fact that we know how important to the owners top four is. So, you know, it'll be made very, very clear that that is one of the priorities. And I think it will make it, if we lose, it'll make it very, very difficult, as we've got City twice and Fulham away. And Fulham at the moment, they're playing very, very well. I think, was it the 7th or 8th at the moment? I know they've got Chelsea tonight. So, you know, that will not be an easy game. And they gave us a good game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I think there's a lot riding on it for both teams. And I think that's why Tottenham will feel that if they can get a result and a good performance out of this game, that could have a big momentum going into things like the Manchester City games, you know, and for the rest of the season. So unusually, I feel more positive about this one than any others, purely because I can't, you know, as I said, it will be horrific if Arsenal go there and absolutely tonk that place. If anybody is going, if we're 3-0 down, I think Carl said it, you know, with like 20 minutes to go home, because honestly, you're just not going to enjoy what you hear, what you see, anything like that. It'll be a horrible, horrible environment. It will. Well, it'll be a graveyard, but it'll be a graveyard of abuse, and it'll go to one man.
It's a certain person. Yeah,
it will. So to be fair, I do. That's why, in a way, I feel, you know, surprisingly a bit of confidence. I said I think it'll be a draw, but I've got more confidence over this than I did particularly like the Palace game.
Could you imagine, though, is Levy going to be in the dressing room telling the players, please get something from this, otherwise I'm going to get battered?
I think that would have been said to Paratici, and then it will go down the line.
Yeah. If we losing. Okay, I want to pose a very tough question for both of you, because this is based on my opinion, really. And I got an argument with Son about this on YouTube, but would you play Son on the Sunday, or would you play, if Kulusevski's back, would you play Kulusevski and Gil? Because this is my take. I've been very impressed with Gil, and I think he gives us something a bit different. And sometimes I think putting a young player in a game like this is actually a good thing. Like, it gives them a bit of a spark to play a bit better. And also I'm also going off the fact that Son scored a hat-trick from coming off the bench against Leicester, which was his best 30 minutes of the season. So would you play Son? Would you play him from the start? Would you? Or are we going to see?
Yeah, I'd play him. As much as I know he's in dog's form at the moment, and he's not been good. We can't hide it. His general all-round play at the moment is pretty poor. But ultimately, this is the sort of game where he could just step it up and all of a sudden just come good. He loves this game. He loves scoring in this game, especially at home. As much as I say Gil has had a couple of reasonable outings, again, if you're Arsenal, who do you fear playing and coming up against? Who would you fear more? Oh, Brian Gill, yes, he's had a reasonable couple of performances, but he's lightweight. You can get at him. If we get stuck into him, probably kick him out of the game. Or Son, who we know, you give this guy an inch and he can punish you. And he's got form against us, especially at this ground. We've got to remember the red card last year. That was all just pure panic over Son and the fact that he might get away from them and get a run on them. So I still think ultimately, as much as his form has been down the pan, this could be the game, a big enough game that gets him fired up and suddenly we see the Son that we might want to see. So for me, I think you have to go with him and start him. And especially even more so if Kulusevski's fit, because that could be the final piece in the jigsaw that you get that front three working back the way we know it can work.
Do you know what?
So Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a slightly different view, but I do agree with what Carl's saying, because my view of it is that Son should have been dropped 3 or 4 games ago, okay, because he's not been in top form. And what we saw was the only time he played his best and turned up was that half an hour. He was devastating. That was the Son of last season, that was, and we haven't seen it since. So I do sit there and I do sort of look at it and think, had it been, if Hill had like 4, 5, 6 games running the team and, got some goals and got more assists, then I would say, yes, start with Hill on that one. But because of the magnitude of the game and the fact that we know what Son can do, and ultimately all we've seen of Brian Hill was a good performance in the second half against Palace. And then we saw kind of like an abject performance, but, a lot of effort against Portsmouth. There's not a lot there that would, and again, an abject performance against Villa. So you really have to look at, would you then take that gamble in that bigger game, dropping Son for Brian Hill? Had he had like a few more games, and I said he got some goals and got more assists, I'd say absolutely. But at the moment, I think Carl's right. I think if you turn around and you put, him in for Son, I think the likes of Saliba and, Gabriel will just barge him off the ball, will just usher him out of the way, and then it will just sort of isolate Kane and Kulusevski. So to me, I think for this game, really, it has to be Son.
Okay, fair enough. Because I kind of disagree. Because like I said, I actually think with Saliba and Gabriel, Son will get less joy because it's not Rob Holding like last season.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's more the fact that.
Oh yeah, he's come from North London Derby. Dan, pick up, mate.
I think the only thing for me is that for example, you look at the comparisons. So like Pape Sarr, I think personally he should play in the middle with Højbjerg, because from what we've seen, Basuma, I don't think is suited. But also you've got somebody to help cover. Whereas if you have Brian Hill, I think he sort of got his space. You're saying to him, you are that focal point on the left hand side. And as I say, we've seen it when certain teams, kind of almost just literally ushered him off the ball, pushed him out of the way. And I think the one thing with Brian Hill that we haven't seen, whereas with Son we have, is the fact that he can hit it from outside the box. So you can't give him time on the ball. and you can't get too tight to him. Whereas with Brian Hill, I think you can kind of just there isn't enough yet that defenses would fear. You know, they know what he would do. Whereas with Son, that although they've seen him, they know he can mix it up. They know he can take a shot. They know that he can run in behind. He can drop deep. He can do all these different things. Whereas I just felt with Brian Hill, that's something that needs to be developed. And I don't think he's ready in such a big game. If it was somebody like maybe Southampton or, you know, Leicester or Everton or someone down the lower end, I'd probably said, yeah, that's fine. I would have dropped him and brought him in. But for a game like this with such importance, I think also as well, the difference being is that if Son is there and Son has a shocker, two things will happen. One, hopefully Conte will bring him off sooner than like the 85th minute, because that'll achieve nothing by leaving him on. But also fans will then be like, what are you doing? Where's the Son we had before? Where's that Son?
But do we have to take this long for people to realise this, though?
Well, but ultimately, you know, but you could turn that to the argument of how many people still believe that, you know, Daniel Levy, Joe Lewis
That's true.
Are going to turn us into that powerhouse that are going to have trophies galore. So, you know, you can argue that in different assets, people believe that the projection of what is going is the right one. So, you know, I think, as I say, with Son, I would start him, but if he has a shocker after an hour, get him off, get Hill on. Don't do, which is one of the things that I really find frustrating with Conte, is leave it till the 85th, 86th minute and then go, all right, well, you come on. Well, we're 2-0 down. What do you want me to do? Well, just go on and have a run around for a bit. You know, it doesn't serve any purpose. I think if it's like an hour gone and we're 1-0 down or 2-0 down, you know, make changes, make positive changes to try and get yourself back into the game and get him off. Because I think that's the one frustrating thing for me. Son's had some shocking games, but he's almost been allowed to get away with it. And I do feel that if he has a shocker, he needs hauling off and quick.
I think it hasn't helped that Richarlison's been injured a lot. And earlier in the season, Conte was very reluctant to take Son off of Richarlison, I felt.
The thing as well, what you've got to remember is if you're a manager, if you're Conte, if you don't play Son and you get beat, people are going to start going, well, it don't help when you leave someone like Son on the bench. Yeah. Whereas if you start, especially for someone like Gil, who, you know, there's been a lot of hype around Gil at the moment, but he hasn't had that many great games. You know, he's had little moments in games. So you're not talking about someone like Aaron Lennon. You remember when he...
Oh, yeah, Aaron Lennon, yeah.
He was skinning fullbacks left, right and centre. And at that point, you could go, you can't leave this kid out because this kid is terrorising teams. Gil's come in and it's like, he's done okay. You see good.
I actually really like Brian Gill. That's probably my bias talking then, I guess. But yeah,
I think as well we're in an era where we big up players doing something that is actually something I would expect most footballers to do. You know, like, oh, he passed a 5-yard pass. Well, yeah, well, I'd expect him to do that. He's a footballer, you know, a professional footballer. I'd expect them to be able to pass 5 yards every now and then. So I think we're careful about how we're building Gil up. And I think ultimately, if you're a manager, you're going to sit there and say, listen, I've got Son, who I know what he can do. If I leave him out for this young kid and it goes wrong, I am going to come under so much stick from the fan base. It's unbelievable. So as a manager, you're going to go, I'm going to go with the trusted and a bloke who I know technically could score me some wonder goals here and terrorise this team. So I'm going to start him, and if it's going wrong, then I can bring him off. Whereas if you start him and it goes wrong, you're just going to come under so much stick from the fans that, not being funny, let's face it.
We do it that way, I guess.
Although Conte, everyone thinks Conte is a class manager, I'm still critical of him this season, and times where I think is like, you're seeing stuff not working, but you're still trying it. Like, you know, you have personnel. He's very stubborn.
I think, but then to be fair, we saw that with Mourinho, and we saw it towards the end with Pochettino. It was almost as if, you know, you sort of looked at it and you sort of felt like they'd reached a point where it's like, well, I'm going to stick with this because, you know, I've got to win. I've got to be a success and things like that. And ultimately, you know, you look at Conte, and Conte is not. I think we all said it when Conte came in. We were like, well, unless hell's frozen over and Tottenham are going to change how they actually go with things, you know, and realise you know, when you go for managers like Mourinho, you have to basically throw everything at it, you know, then I think it'd be different. But ultimately, you know, someone like Conte, he's going to go with his best players. And on their day, Son is a better player than Hill. It's as simple as that. So he's not, you know, as he's made it quite clear, although it's Tottenham's vision, as he's repeated 100 times, which is to get young players in, develop them and integrate them into the first team. That's not his. That's not his. So I don't feel that, you know, particularly throwing Hill into a game like this which has got so much importance to both teams. I think if Brian Hill has a shocker, that's going to knock his confidence a lot. And I think I'd rather him playing games like, you know, as I said, Everton, Leicester, Southampton, teams like that, where you've got other people around you and things like that. Whereas if Son has a bad game in this one, it's just going to cement the fact that we need Richarlison back, but we also need Trossard. I still
I'd take him in a heartbeat.
I absolutely would. I so would. I think
I saw your video.
Really is. Yeah, I mean, I just look at it and I don't understand. You know, when you look at the window and you look at what's going on, why it is that Tottenham haven't gone with his Premier League experience. He's a Belgium international. He scored a hat-trick against at Anfield, and he can play up top if we need him to, and he can play on the left, which is his kind of favourite position. So you could, you know, you've then almost got two reserve quality players, and actually then you could, which I've been saying for God knows how long, is get Brian Hill alone to a Premier League team. You know, why are we sending him to Spain? That doesn't develop him at all. He needs a loan in the Premier League, you know, to actually be able to adapt to it, play regular 90 minutes, and he will then be more comfortable with it for next season. So, you know, but in terms of this game, yeah, it just has to be. And I think from Conte's point of view, he will, because his reputation's riding on it. He's not going to risk his reputation on kids. Mourinho didn't. Towards the end, Pochettino didn't, you know, and Conte hasn't. So I never understand why Tottenham, under this management model they've got with Conte, why you would buy any youth players. We've seen it with Jed Spence. Total waste of time that was. I feel sorry for him. So I don't see it. You know, I think it is just a case of he would only play if there was an injury or things going horribly wrong.
I think with Trossard, I'm a fan of him because also he's very creative, and we kind of need a creative player anyway. And he can play, like you said, all across the front. And I even think he could play as a number 10. I would put it out there. But like, I would take an option.
Not under Conte.
Not a Conte, but I'm just saying he's a creative player.
Never going to play a number 10.
Yeah. But as in, like he's creative enough to say cover Kulusevski maybe or something like that.
I honestly can't work out why he's not through the door yet, because the guy ticks all the boxes. They want an attacking player. He's not going to cost a fortune. You know, he's got Premier League experience. I honestly don't. I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh, he's 28 years old." You know, does he? It's like what? Yeah. You know, we brought in Perisic, who's what has he got? 8 assists, 7, 8 assists.
Yeah,
you know, one of the highest assists. You know, for us. So, and he's 33. I don't understand this whole age thing. I think it's ridiculous. You know, it's. You know, if you're going to base it on age, you get Conte out the door, you get Thomas Frank in, and you do then you ultimately accept this age. Whereas if you've got someone like Conte, age it's just a number. You bring in who he wants and you let him have the success. Now, I honestly sit there and think it's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. You know, this whole Tottenham aren't sure they're going to buy. So it's like this Pedro Porro thing where, I don't know, but that's the player Conte wants, but Tottenham up. Well, hang on a minute. Who wants him? Tottenham or Conte? If Conte wants him, get him in now. You know, it really winds me out. I know why they're not, because they're thinking they'll wait until like 11:58 or 10:58 on the 31st when they think, we'll knock 5 million quid off. You know, we'll have lost about 5, 6, 7 points at that point, but at least we've saved 5 million quid. Brilliant. You know, it's a case of if we got him in now, we can integrate him now and deal with it. That's what other teams do. You look at the other teams. I mean, you look at Liverpool, you know, they didn't turn around and go, oh, well, okay, we've got these players out injured, but okay, you know, we could, we need another player. Let's get him in. You know, they've got 7 attackers. We saw the bench at Palace.
Yeah,
I mean, that was horrific, bench. It was absolutely horrific. And it was just grateful we actually got the win there. So you do just have to sit there and think that if these players are what they truly want, just get them in now. Get them in now. Stop messing about. Get them in. Let them integrate. It's so important. We saw the success it had last year. Why are we choosing not to get it done? You know,
'Cause it's Tottenham, I guess.
well, as I
But
say, I think February will be more than anything else.
Also, I think players with release clauses, to me, it comes across as that it's easier to sign them because you know they cost this amount. Just pay that amount, and you get the player pretty much. So why is it so difficult for Tottenham to do that? It's just very mind-boggling to me. Anyway, I'm going to go on to
the only thing I would say with that, when it comes to a release clause, one of the things that a lot of clubs do, they pay in installments, and the problem with a release clause is it's not down to you. If you say I'll pay your release clause, generally they want the money up front, and most clubs don't do that. What they tend to do, which is a bit odd, they'll pay more for a player because they're not actually meeting the release clause. They can then pay in installments. But again, if you feel he's good enough, why would you then just not pay it and do it in installments? However you feel makes sense. I don't understand it.
It's typical Levy, isn't it? Because even though the guy's got a release clause, if you maybe went in 1 million, 2 million under the release clause, the team might still go, do you know what? It's close enough. We'll do the deal. But Levy will go in 10 million under the release clause. And ultimately the team go, well, you can piss off, mate, because there's no way.
Jack Grealish thing.
You know,
5 million plus Josh Onoma.
Yeah.
5 million, yeah. That was just...
if you just went to them, 2 million under that release clause, I reckon they do a deal, or you possibly get close to doing a deal. But when you're 10 million under the asking price, all you do is piss that team off, and they say, well, no, we definitely ain't budging now because you're taking the piss.
Well, the interesting thing is, if you look at last year when we tried to sign Luis Diaz, we did the same thing. We put a bit in, they were umming and ahhing and things like that, and we were trying to negotiate bits with it. And we didn't take a ridiculous amount of time. We almost had, we had to just turn around. We knew that Liverpool wanted him, and ultimately they were going to go for him in the summer. So we almost just had to go, right, how do we get this deal done now? What do you need? We want the player. How do we get it done? And just do it. Because when you start, buggering about with these sort of prices and the demographics of how it's all going to work, all that's going to happen is the agent's going to go to the club and say, right, or to Liverpool, and did exactly that. Said, unless you want Luis Diaz, you sign him now, because Tottenham are going to negotiate this for 4 months, but they'll get him, right? And sure enough, Liverpool went, right, how much do we pay? Yep, fine, we'll have him. And then his head was turned, and it was as simple as that. You can't. I mean, I remember when Villa signed Danny Ings, because I was just like, where'd that come from? There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing, and that's the whole point. That is how football. That is how you should operate. You should just be able to turn around and go, by the way, here's our player. It's done. Whereas we will argue for every single penny out of a deal. And 9 times out of 10, because there is so much money now in football, mostly a Premier League club will just go, yeah, we'll have him. We'll pay it. If they're going to argue over it, that's it. And it ultimately shows how, we have big club ambitions, but small club owners, and that is how you can't do that. They've both got to go hand in hand. If you want to be a big club, it's got to be a big club across the whole board. And that is the thing that at the moment, Tottenham, because there's no way we can go into the second half of the season with the 3 right backs we've got. But they'll say, well, we can't have 3 right backs. Well, who bought them? Who bought these 3 right backs to fit a position that you didn't feel was suitable? It's absolutely crazy. You did it. You were the ones who bought Jed Spence. It wasn't a Conte signing. He made it very clear and has proven that by not even playing him. So you sort of look at it and you think, why is it that? Because if you look at, let's say, Trossard, and you look at Porro, if you'd have got those done Monday, Tuesday, would they have a chance of playing on Sunday?
Yeah.
If you look at, let's say, for example, those 2 in particular, if you're looking at them and you're thinking you want to get them, why not get it done so you can have them for ultimately what will be our biggest game of the season so far? That's the bit I do not understand, because we saw how much of a difference Kulusevski made in the North London derby last year. So why would we not, or last season, why would we not want, you know, Paul and Trossard and Hincapié, you know, in now? That is about, I just can't get my head round. When you've got this particular run of games, you know, if it was a case of we had, you know, as I said, the fixtures earlier of Everton, Southampton, Leicester, fine, you could take your time. But these, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4 games are massive, absolutely massive. City twice, Arsenal at home, you know, Fulham away. Surely, because if we lose all 4 of those, which is a distinct possibility, season's done. Season's done. That's it. You know, we may not even get conference football.
Conference.
Well, it'll be a shame, because I'd love nothing more than for us to play Paco Rabanne and whoever the other ones that we were playing, you know, back then. So to me, I just find it baffling. I really, really do.
So, Carl, I'm going to pose a question to you, because I know, Justin, you mentioned this about Pape Matar Sarr. So, do you think, I fully expect Conte to play Skip and Højbjerg, but do you think Pape Matar Sarr deserves a start over Skip?
You could put in that you could argue the case that he deserves a start over some of those players, but again, I think this is one of them where Conte is going to go with players he probably has a little bit more faith in, and also a bit like with Gil, I feel. Although not be funny, Gil will probably play, because if Kulusevski ain't fit, then Gil's starting. But the only other thing you have to be a little bit careful of is destroying a player's confidence. And if you put Sarr in that side, and we don't turn up and we don't play well, and he doesn't have a good game, then people go mad and say, well, actually, the hype ain't there. So I think that's where you have to be careful with a young player like that in the middle of the pitch. And that's where I think Conte will still go with, say, Højbjerg and Skip, or Bissouma, because Bissouma's back in training.
Is he back in training now?
Yeah, I think I saw him in training, yeah. So if he's training, I think Sarr drops down that pecking order.
Even though,
and ultimately, I think it's a good thing, because, like I say, you do have to be careful. You know, you play him in this fixture and it all goes badly wrong, then that's crushing. You know, you could be destroying the guy before he's even got started. Like as we're saying, if you had a run of fixtures, Leicester, Southampton, those sort of teams, you can run the risk a little bit more of putting him in and knowing it's not going to go as toxic as it will here if things go badly. But you could argue he could start over Skip, and you could argue based on his performances he could start over Bissouma so far, because we're yet to still see the Brighton Bissouma that was playing last season. You know, we still haven't seen that guy yet in a Spurs shirt. I think there's a mixture of things there. Conte, I think, has knocked his confidence a little bit by not playing him straight away. And obviously the comments around, well, he needs to get used to things here and get used to my tactics. But I still think him and Bissouma and Skip edge ahead of Sarr at the moment, if you've got to pick out of those 3.
See, so Justin, but would you put him in? Because the reason I say this is because you guys remember 10 years ago, or however, was it 12 years ago now? I don't know. 13 years ago now, yeah. When we finally beat Arsenal the first time at the Lane. I mean, Redknapp stuck in Danny Rose. He came up trumps. So sometimes in these sorts of games, sometimes things like this, I feel like are a bit more interesting to talk about, because that's why I suggested Gil, for example. Now I'm suggesting Sarr. Especially because Sarr was actually like a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm probably going to disagree with Carl on the element of I would play Sarr. I would play Sarr and Højbjerg purely because I think when you look at the players, obviously, you know, this is all on the basis of Bentancur's not fit. You know, if Bentancur's in, then it's him and Højbjerg. But if Bentancur is not fit, I think the problem you have is the position and how Conte sets it up. It doesn't suit Bissouma. I don't. And I think that's one of the reasons we haven't seen it, because Bissouma's kind of a box to box. He kind of likes to drive forward with the ball. And I think it's kind of more sort of with the role that Conte wants him to do, which is just to break up the play, you know, and just move the ball to somebody further up to sort of take it from there, really. I don't think he wants him to move out of that position. It's kind of a case of stay where you are, break it up, take it to where you need to, and then pass it on to somebody else. Whereas Bissouma, I think for him, he likes the idea of going further with the ball and maybe going, being that bridge between attack and defence. I think Pape Sarr is more comfortable in the defensive sort of role. I mean, it might even make more sense. I know this won't happen, but to have Basuma and Sarr, because ultimately I think Basuma's better going forward than Højbjerg is. Excuse me. But I think the problem with like Oliver Skip is, I think when you look at how Conte has spoken about Skip and Sarr, I think he has more faith in Sarr than he does for Skip. I think Skip in the last sort of couple of games has sort of been a bit nervous, a bit sort of, not feeling as confident perhaps as I think, whereas Sarr, when he's come in, just seems relaxed and just, I don't know what it is. There's almost this feeling of when he has the ball, it seems okay. You're not worried. You almost feel confident enough. Whereas I think for Skip, he almost has to just play it to the nearest person, regardless of whether that's the role he has. Whereas I think Sarr is more comfortable passing it on further up and passing it to the attack rather than what Basuma I think likes to do, which is run it into the attack. So for me, I would go with, if Bentancur isn't fit, then I think it will be Sarr and Højbjerg. Obviously, as I said, I would prefer Sarr and Basuma, but I think he'll go Sarr and Højbjerg in that middle.
Interesting. Okay, so now let's talk about the worst part of our team, the defense. So Carl, which back five do you expect to play on Sunday? And which back five would you like to see? And which back five would you expect to play?
Well, I think you're looking at the obvious. It's going to be Lloris, Doherty, Romero, Dyer, Davies, and Perisic. I think that's what you're going to see. If all those are fit, that I think is Conte's. We say this.
So Longley won't play. You don't think Longley will play over Davies or over Dyer?
That's a tough one, but I still think Conte prefers Davies ahead of Longley. So yeah, I would say, but that one is a bun fight. You could pick either one of those two in that position. I don't, put it this way, I haven't seen that much of Longley yet that makes me think he's much better than Davies, to be honest, in that position. He's not a player I would extend the loan deal or look to buy him permanently, because I think there's better out there from what we've seen. But I just think he trusts Davies a little bit more. So that's the back line I think he'd go with. I mean, it doesn't fill you with confidence at all, but I think that's going to be how we line up. And then we just have to hope that they're all on their game and, Dyer isn't miskicking ones out.
Oh, God. If they both play, I in advance, if anyone who sits in my stand is watching this in advance, if Dyer and Davies play, you're going to hear like a lot of stuff from me.
We have to hope that Lloris is on it as well, because Lloris at the moment it is quite scary with some of the stuff he's doing most weeks, isn't he? Apart from when England played France, and you knew he'd be the safest goalkeeper in the world at that point. And then the first game back for Spurs, he's almost throwing one in again, isn't he? So yeah. If we need to hope that they're all, the concentration is there. They're all having one of their better games. But that's how I see us lining up at the back.
All right, Justin, do you think it'll be the same? Do you think he'll do something
different?
I
mean, as much as I would love to see Jed Spence, I think I've been saying that all season.
Yeah, I know. Every stream I'm on, where you're saying play Jed.
And to be fair, I still think he's our best right wing back. I think we only see flashes of what Doherty can do, and I don't think Doherty has been consistent enough. He seems to be sort of finding that, but I hate sort of being so critical of Emerson, because in a sense, as I said earlier, I feel sorry for him because he's not a right wing back. He was brought in as a right back, and I think he is trying to fit into a role that just doesn't suit him. But I think it'll be Doherty. I think it'll be Romero. I think it'll be Dyer, and I think it'll be Longley, and then Perisic, because I think we can get more out of Perisic, particularly in this game, than we do of Sessegnon, because I think with Sessegnon, it just depends which Ryan Sessegnon turns up. I don't think there's enough that he has shown so far that makes you think actually he can be a real difference maker there, and that's a shame because when we first signed him, I thought, this is a real prospect who I thought was going to be for us like the next Gareth Bale, would have developed to go further up the pitch and play that like he did for Fulham, but he's stuck as a left wing back, and I don't know if he'll be even at the club next year because obviously we got Udogie coming in who's doing really well for Udinese at the moment, and I think if I was Conte or Pochettino, because let's face facts, if Conte isn't here, it'll be Pochettino. We know that, so it's going to be a case of that I certainly wouldn't put Sessegnon in over Perisic. I'd go Perisic because I think there's so much more he can offer that will restrict Arsenal, because they won't want to go too far forward because they know that he can really hit them on the counter.
I mean, I don't disagree with anything about Perisic you guys said because I really don't rate Sessegnon, so it's not really difficult. But my back five would probably be Lloris because I just don't see him playing Forster in a game like this. Doherty, Perisic, that's kind of a given. I don't want Emerson or Sessegnon anywhere near the pitch. But my back three would probably be Romero, Longley in the middle, and Davies on the left because I think you kind of pick between two poisons between Dyer and Davies.
It's kind of a strange one when it comes to Eric Dyer because ultimately you sort of look at it and you think with him he's a terrible defender. I'm not going to sugarcoat that with Eric Dyer, but it's almost as if he makes Romero almost relax, almost more comfortable. But yeah, and I agree with you with Lloris. As much as he can have a howler, I don't think he'll be dropped until either next season when hopefully we get a decent long-term goalkeeper.
Okay, so Carl, because I know you have to go in like 5 minutes. Firstly, I'm going to get some score predictions if I can from you guys before I let you go. What's your prediction for Sunday's game?
You know what? I've said I'm not confident and everything, but I think we'll win 2-1.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I think Kane will break the record because we know Kane's scoring, that's for sure.
Kane to score. I was going to.
And what a game to break Jimmy Greaves's record in that would be, wouldn't it? I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more. If it wasn't good enough that you scored the 265th goal on the same day as Greaves, what a way to then go and break that record in a North London derby at home against Arsenal. So yeah, I've said all along that I'm not confident, but I think we'll nick it 2-1 and Kane will score both.
And he'll break the record. All right, Justin, what's your prediction for Sunday?
I just don't see Tottenham losing. I think it will be a very entertaining game. I think it'll be end to end. I think both teams will go for it purely because they know how important it is to both teams. Arsenal will want to show that they are serious title contenders, and obviously we will want to get back into the top four race. So myself personally, I don't see anything other than a draw. I think 2-2.
And sorry, my prediction is kind of like negative, but I think Arsenal going to win 3-1. Because if Bentancur isn't playing, I just don't see how we function in midfield. And
I don't think Bentancur is going to make it. I think Kulusevski is the only one who I think has got a chance of really.
I think he'll play, but I just don't think we'll get the Kulusevski that we want in this such a short space of time.
Maybe.
So before I let you both go, Justin, where can we find you?
Yeah,
we do a lot of streams together. So
yeah, we do. So it's either I'll be here or I'm obviously doing them with Marlon or Tommy Talks, Tommy Talks Spurs, and obviously I do. My main one is the All Things Tottenham show. It's a bit more. I think I'd call it quite a bit more edgy because whereas on here we might say someone is slightly rubbish. We're on there. We'll kind of maybe say it a bit differently. So yeah, well, yeah, so pretty much a bit more of that. I mean, honestly, I think if you listen to me on there, I haven't just been campaigning for Spence. I kind of almost was thinking that Spence had gone missing. I didn't even know if he existed. I thought we just paid £20 million for a magical ghost that we could sell shirts off the back of. So, it's a bit more of an edgy, a bit more sort of close to the wind, but it's one of those things where we're just passionate, and we've waited so long for Tottenham to win. So yeah, either with yourself or Tommy or Marlon, or my main thing is all things Tottenham. So yeah, as I come follow us there, or as I've always said, if I've said something and anyone's got any questions about it, comment to me on Twitter or and I'll be more than happy to sort of have those debates. I'm not somebody who'll sit there and go, well, this is my opinion, and if you don't like it, I'm gonna say X, Y, and Z. I think everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'm happy to sit there, and go through it. So ultimately, all I would say is just give us a follow and these sort of things. And thank you so much for having me on.
That's okay. You're more than welcome to come on next time anyway.
No, that'll be fine. Yeah, I'll look forward to it.
Yeah. And Carl, you come back with another channel now. So if you want to plug
so
channel,
Coys has kind of died its death, unfortunately. So we won't be coming back as Coys. But yeah, we've got the That Spurs podcast where we'll be getting some of the old crew back on there, getting yourselves on, and Justin, we try and see if we can do something.
Justin's brilliant, honestly.
That'd be great.
No, I'd be more than happy to.
So we're back there. So if you followed Coys, then get over to the new channel, and hopefully we'll be bringing loads more stuff your way over the course of the season and seasons going forward.
Okay, so just before we end, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
And fuck off, you Arsenal.